Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Historical Studies. Let me begin now. The time is up for us to begin, and the topic, I think you're all aware, is a pretty, you know, in one way ambitious topic. In another way, it could be just that we are all doing that. Many of or most of you who have something to do with Indic studies, as it is called in the north of America, or earlier it used to be called South Asian Studies, which made no sense, at least to me as a student there. But nevertheless, whatever it is, um, uh, uh, we are the conference aims to bring out certain ideas of, as it has been said, reimagining and reclaiming Indian knowledge tradition. Both the terms are in a way powerful, and reimagining, as if you know, that imagination has been lost, and reclaiming as if somebody has stolen. But these are relative terms for the kind of concepts that we deal with in Indian studies. And Indian knowledge tradition, of course, is a vast area, as most of you experts who have been dealing with Indian studies would know. So let me begin with this thing, with the first uh, speaker is Professor William Jackson, who was, I think, along with the first one who logged in a while ago. And he also mentioned that it's pretty cold over there. And thank you very much. It is not getting late, but of course, uh, uh, very close to bedtime. So without wasting your time, Professor William Jackson, please go ahead. He is from Indiana University, or is based in Indiana. Professor William Jackson, and I would request all the participants who are there in this virtual room to please mute yourself so that he is not disturbed by any kind of conversations, or just as I'm sipping a cup of tea or whatever it is, so he's not disturbed. Professor William Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Room is yours.
Reflections on values symbolized in Tyagaraja's lyrics. The songs of Sri Tyagaraja, 1767 to 1487, are especially well known and much loved among people living in South India and among people of South Indian descent living in many places throughout the world. I am someone who heard Tyagaraja's music from afar and felt drawn to it strongly enough to travel thousands of miles to explore it and learn about its depths. Although I'm not South Indian, I feel strongly that Tyagaraja stands for a kind of thinking that is valuable to India and to humanity at large. The musical aspects of Tyagaraja's songs have a soulful charm. The lyrical aspects express archetypal yearnings, recognitions, and spiritual situations, and offer many enduring ideas and sentiments on which to meditate. A few examples from Tyagaraja's hundreds of songs will illustrate what I mean. Bhakti devotion constitutes the central value of love, prema, which is conveyed, for example, in Tyagaraja's song Anuragamu Leni, with the refrain, "To the mind without love, wisdom will not come," as an English translation from the Telugu puts it. Devotional repetition of a mantra is a way to calm the naturally restless mind and a method used to keep the brain from endlessly grinding against itself. In another song, Tyagaraja sings, "Chant, O mind, the name of Rama, knowing full well its meaning through deep contemplation." The mantra gives steadiness and strength to practitioners in a world of uncertainties and challenges. Meditation is another practice Tyagaraja sings about. In Tanalone Dhyaninchi, Tyagaraja prays in a song to Rama, meditating deep within, "Let me become merged with you." Tyagaraja celebrates the spiritual power of music, whether listened to or played, in a song Sri Prapriya Sangitopasana. O mind, be intent upon music, dear to the consort of Lakshmi. Music, mind wealth of ascetics, free from the three miseries, trouble of self and of fate and of pain caused by others. Moving through the 7 notes, O mind, be intent upon music. Tyagaraja enthusiastically sings of humility and dedication in Endaro Mahanubhavalu. To as many great souls as there be, I bow respectfully, and he names his various ideals. The universal features of Tyagaraja's songs are found in the catchiness of some of his tunes, in the haunting mystery of heartfelt Vani, resonance or evocative suggestion of moods and meanings, and in human values and high ideals in his lyrics. For example, in this song, there's an intriguing image. Rama's glory is beyond description, O my mind. It is a glory beyond anything words can describe. Intuiting the wish in Sita's mind for a royal whisk fan made from a yak tail, Rama released an arrow to cut off the yak's tail. Realizing this, the yak resolved to lose her life rather than her dignity and stuck out her throat to cover her hindquarters. Seeing this, Rama melted with pity, immediately diverting the arrow. Rama's glory is beyond description, O my mind. It is a glory beyond anything words can describe. Rama, who loves music, is glorious beyond words. Dramatizing the quality of Rama's mercy, this song, Vachama Gochamare, tells a story not found in the Valmiki Ramayana, but found in some regional vernacular poems, songs, and puppet plays. The story is set in the forest when Rama was exiled with his wife, Sita. Rama noticed that Sita wished for a yak tail fly whisk to keep insects from pestering her. The yak, when faced with the arrow speeding toward her fluffy tail, does something remarkable. Of her own volition, the yak offers her neck as a target instead. This behavior, the offering of one's neck, symbolizes a dramatic act which is bound to make an observer feel compassion, a deep value and virtue in Hinduism and Buddhism. The yak wins Rama's divine compassion, and the listener admires Rama for relenting, mercifully changing the course of the arrow so that it does not strike the yak's fancy tail after all. The throat offering image is interesting. Even in English, we have the expression sticking your neck out, meaning making yourself vulnerable, going out of one's way for another, putting oneself in danger for others. Here, the deer sticks her neck out for her own reasons, with regard for her own wholeness, her beauty and modesty. Her fluffy tail is her prized possession, a feature which makes her a full-fledged yak. Is there a deeper significance in this curious symbolic anecdote? I think so. The yak's stretched out neck enacts a poignant surrender to Lord Rama, as if saying, "Take my life." She humbly put her throat in the path of the advancing arrow instead of fleeing or defending herself. In a sense, this was an act of provoking ahimsa or satyagraha, holding firmly to truth on the part of the yak. When Rama noticed what was happening, seeing the yak surrender, he felt the surge of compassion and quickly prevented the arrow from striking the yak, demonstrating that someone who surrenders immediately gains Lord Rama's karuna, his compassionate sympathy and protection. Traditionally, Rama is the divine refuge for devoted souls, a compassionate friend and caring protector of all sorts of creatures. The image of the yak offering her throat thus might suggest that in the face of violence, even when it comes from God, it is possible to have a nonviolent response, something like turning the other cheek. It is an act of self-sacrifice, a symbolic display of selfless surrender, showing trust in surrender. Being in this state of vulnerability can sometimes win over the other side's sympathy and mercy. It is a self-offering that can cause the aggressor inflicting violence to relent. At least it does in this story of Rama Bhakti. A deep principle is dramatized here. If the violent person has a spark of decency or compassion that can be awakened in the heart, then things can change. This is like Gandhiji's nonviolent resistance, the willingness to suffer in the cause of seeking justice. Nonviolent resistance couldn't work in Germany when the Nazis were bent on genocide, but it could and did succeed with the British colonizers in India because it appealed to their own ideals of decency and justice, speaking to their consciences, as historians have observed. Gandhi experimented in his daily life to find the methods that would work in India to regain Svaraj, self-rule, and independence from colonial powers. His life and his activism became a public image of nonviolence in the face of injustice and violence through Gandhi's compassion and constructive negotiations. Allow me to digress a moment on this theme of clarity in recognizing the Mahatma's contributions by comparing him with a contemporary of his, especially comparing their two views of modern man. Gandhi lived from 1860 to 1948, and Franz Kafka lived from 1883 to 1924. Both enriched human self-understanding. Franz Kafka, a Jewish European writer of modern parables, in some of his stories and fables, seems to portray modern man as a mere schmendrick, a Yiddish word meaning a helpless and incompetent bumpkin in the face of the unfathomable, a lovable loser existing at the mercy of the indifferent workings of a great big cold universe around him. This indeed is the way many people in the modern age often feel. Significantly, Gandhi did not see the individual as a pitiable, absurd cipher, helpless, hapless in the world of forces in which he exists and where he often feels he is a victim. Gandhi was a humble figure facing enormous Goliaths, standing his ground, not backing down. He found ways to exert pressure to demand justice. He showed the world an activist way to deal with conditions he wanted to make better. Gandhi, the activist, the conscientious man struggling with issues of his age, was misunderstood by some as an idealistic fool, a loser, a mere schmendrick, who just didn't understand the way the world works. His experiments with nonviolence were misread as cowardice by some. Some see no courage in Gandhi. They forget his practical abilities, his brave experiments with negotiating and protesting, appealing to conscience. They forget his success in teaching cooperation to millions of people worldwide. Gandhi's efforts included the willingness to suffer to gain justice for worthy causes. The ideal act of sacrificing one's own comfort does not guarantee the spread of inspiration by acts of self-giving, but the principle endures. The transformation of others to the peacefulness of ahimsa, harmlessness, in the presence of a living example of inner peace is part of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra text, which goes, when nonviolence is firmly rooted, enmity ceases in the yogi's presence. In the story of the yak surrendering her life to Rama, Tyagaraja is relating a tale of what Gandhi would later term satyagraha, holding commitment to truth, and he sang it for the coming generations. As a riddle worth delving into, we might also explore Tyagaraja's confessional songs as epitomes of repentance. In the compassion strumming notes of the raga Chakravakam, in a composition beginning with the words Etu brotuvo telia, Tyagaraja expresses the mood of fear and danger. The song voices fear and doubts that Rama will give him refuge and save him from his past deeds, saying he was wandering like a stray bull, caring about nothing but eating, flattering misers to make a living. The narration bemoans human flaws and wasteful pastimes, regretfully admitting engaging in wicked acts while tagging along with other wrongdoers. The lyrics bemoan the narrator's state of self-caused misery, worrying about his shameful shortcomings. A listener taking the words literally might ask, why would a pious saint such as Tyagaraja write a song in which he confesses to wasting his life in wickedness? But in various songwriters, we find confessional lyrics. For example, Bob Dylan's Lonesome Hobo. It's as if the narrator is performing an exercise to help listeners reflect on their own faults, to help the multitudes examine their consciences. Songwriters give voice to our shadowy human predicaments in some songs, dramatizing the soul-searching which every human goes through at times. Tyagaraja, in writing songs of confession, was bringing a deep therapeutic value to his music. There can be an unhealthy tension in carrying around faults we humans hide. Seeking forgiveness of the wrongs which humanity is heir to, this theme is found in songs both East and West. The symbols used in Tyagaraja's songs, like those found in other singer-saints' lyrics, represent the code of a cultural system of refinement, education, and discipline. They use vivid images to impress listeners' psyches with reasons for acts of devotion, full dedication of one's energies, and conscientious self-examination. Tyagaraja's songs are a gift to humanity, just as the great temple of Tanjore, the 1,000-year-old Brihadishvara temple, is a legacy for humanity, which is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrating an enduring accomplishment for humanity. Tyagaraja, as the composer of timeless songs of devotion, is remembered beyond his home region and serves as a kind of ambassador and representative of hopeful, devoted people around the world. The singer-saints of India are exponents of Sanatana Dharma, carriers and renewers of the perennial philosophy of enduring wisdom traditions. Even now, they endure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. What a brilliant presentation of music and mind and multiple senses that humans and other creatures carry, and what an impact both the song and the stories that music carries. I thought it was a brilliant rendition of what you have done. Rendition in terms of a lecture, I mean, of the Tyagaraja's music and the stories from which he was inspired, and he wanted to create those melodies which inspire people and have an impact. It reminds me of what some great musicians said about Mozart, that he was creating music to celebrate God, whatever that was. He may not have been clear about it, but some other court musicians are very particularly careful. And this is the tradition, as you mentioned, coming out from the Vedic tradition, where Samaveda is dedicated to how actually celebrate people, deities, gods, and general public through chanting in a melody that has a lasting impact and perhaps also a healing impact. So thank you very much. I don't know whether Preeti ji, do we have a question answer session now or later, because we have a very limited time for each speaker, and just let me know. Can you unmute yourself, Preeti, and tell me what is the pattern that you want me to adopt as a chair? Fine. So I don't. So anyway, let me go to the next speaker without wasting any time, and it will be a fascinating corollary from this lecture of musical melody to Professor Tamara Cohen, who is calculating the Mokṣopāya, that is Sāṃkhya to Mokṣopāya, or Sāṃkhya and Mokṣopāya, something around that tune. It is I mean, I think one can connect to what Professor William Jackson has said in terms of Tyagaraja's music, but here it is, what are the means through which one feels free gets rid of what is known as unfreedom. And what are these Mokṣopāyas? Professor Tamara Cohen, who is from University of Virginia, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint.
Please do.
Yeah, so thank you. And so I'm going to talk about the Sāṃkhya doctrine of the Mokṣopāya. Let me see as if it's going to move. Hold on. Okay. So this is my plan. I'm going to introduce just briefly the Mokṣopāya, which is a text, and then I'm going to talk about the tattva.
I want to acknowledge Professor Rosenroscher is here, and
yeah,
it is under this their foundation, Ludwig and Rosenroscher Foundation, that you're working. We're very, very fortunate and privileged that she has spared her precious time to be here and listen to all of us. Thank you very much. Please, I'm sorry for interruption. Please go ahead. Just wanted to acknowledge.
No, thank you for the interruption, and thank you so much for the acknowledgement. I put it on the screen, but I wasn't sure if I should say it, so I appreciate it. Okay. So I'm going to introduce the Mokṣopāya, and then I'm going to talk about the tattvas specifically in the Mokṣopāya, and I'm going to kind of compare them with the tattva doctrine in the Sāṃkhya Karikas. And then I'm just going to show some specific passages from the Mokṣopāya that I think show a tattva doctrine. The Mokṣopāya is dated to mid-10th century in Kashmir. It's an early recension of the text that later became known as the Yoga Vasishta. What happened was in the mid-1950s, first Divanji, scholar, noticed that there were two different groups of manuscripts, but it wasn't until the 90s where some scholars in Germany decided to create, late 90s, to create a critical edition of the Mokṣopāya. And that critical edition, which is almost complete, still almost complete, is what I work on. And it's a mind-only philosophy, idealist non-dualism. And the author of the Mokṣopāya claims that this doctrine is the final position of all Shastras, the Sarva Shastra Siddhanta, and it can explain all Shastras. So I've sort of taken that to task and thought, okay, well, if I applied this doctrine to the Sāṃkhya Karikas, or the idea of tattvas in the Sāṃkhya, how could this doctrine explain that? And one aspect of scholarship on the Yoga Vasishta and now Mokṣopāya is that the scholars are looking for a context, because these claims to universality and little traces throughout the text of many different traditions, it's been impossible to pin down a particular tradition that it belongs to, although I have suggested Sāṃkhya Yoga affiliate, possibly that it's a Sāṃkhya Yoga doctrine. And yeah, I think that's all I should say right now. This is a diagram I created of the tattva system given in the Sāṃkhya Karikas. Now the thing is, in Sāṃkhya, it's a dualistic system. So you have here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you have Purusha and Prakriti, and these two
yes, it is visible. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. These two are considered to be separate, and they are never one. Purusha will infuse Prakriti with awareness. Prakriti is Mula Prakriti is primal matter, and then from Mula Prakriti descends or emerges all of creation. I think one thing I want to point out here is that this Buddhi, Ahankara, and Manas are together considered to be the Antakarna, the inner cause, or the inner maker. So I can't remember the exact translation that's most common, but right now, but I want to point out that they are all in some ways cognitive. So even though Prakriti is primal matter, the first things to emerge from Prakriti are Buddhi, Ahankara, and Manas, which are these cognitive things, which I think is an opening for the author of the Mokṣopāya to think of this system as an idealist system rather than a material. Sāṃkhya is usually Satkaryavada, where the cause is inherent, the result is inherent in the cause, and it's considered to be a material cause, prakriti, of all of the world. So in the Mokṣopāya, we have I've found two places where I think particularly a Sāṃkhya doctrine we find. And one is in Chudala's Vichara. So the Mokṣopāya is sort of modeled on the Mahabharata, as you know, with the Yoga Vasishta, where there's a central narrative and many sub-stories. So this is a sub-story. And you have King Shikidvaja and Queen Chudala, and they decide at some point they want to pursue enlightenment. And then Chudala on her own, she sits down and she does a contemplation. And in this contemplation, she runs through the tattva. So she starts with this. This is certain. I don't begin with this silent inert body. This body is experienced certainly from childhood and it is experienced at death. So she starts with the body. I think the body is these indriyas that I didn't really talk about at the bottom, but they are the material, the body. And then she goes through more of the indriyas. She goes the collection of karmendriyas, that's consisting of limbs, is not separate, and it's insentient because of the non-separation of the whole from the part. So she goes to the karmendriyas, then she goes to the buddhindriyas. This group is also, since it arises through manas, now we're going to manas, that is just inert, like a mark on the ground. So you can see how she's going through the tattvas in her contemplation, and she's saying, I'm not any of these, right? And I understand that manas is inert, having the power whose essence is conceptualization, like thinking, thought, idealization. It is impelled through the convictions of buddhi. So the buddhi is in the Samkhya Karika, it's pratyaya, it has a nature of pratyaya, it's an idea. Here the word is nishchaya, it's an idea. Then, I can't see this because I've got all this Zoom stuff here. Likewise, buddhi has the form of a conviction. And it's the conviction, it's the idea that the insentient is real. So here we're getting an idealist Samkhya, idealist tattvas. And then it's steered by ahankara. So it's a bit of a different order. But later on, I think it is the same order. I'll show you the next model. And likewise, ahankara too is without essence, insentient with the nature, of course, produced by the jiva. So in this case, the jiva is at the level of prakriti. So I think in this system, you have at the top jiva as prakriti, and then mana, and then purusha is chit, consciousness, right? But there are two jivas here. There's the cosmic jiva, this universal prakriti, and then there's the individual jiva, which is the ahankara. So in this case, the ahankara is without essence, with the nature, it's produced by the jiva. And then, and the jiva over here, and the jiva, whose essence is form, is a conceptualization that exists in the heart. Okay, so this is the personal jiva that has the nature of wind. So the jiva is the subtle body, it's prana, and it's sperm, and it subsists by means of something else. And now here, this something else is also jiva, right? Ad is known through this. The jiva lives by the means of the jiva itself. And in this case, later on here, I translated, went the wrong. I translated jiva. I kind of put life in backgrounds because it's this cosmic jiva. So this jiva has the stain of emitting mental objects. So it conceptualizes. That's one thing it does. It thinks, imagines, whose own form is the form of consciousness. And the jiva lives just through the form of consciousness that has delusion of mental objects. So it has these thoughts that it thinks are things, like fragrance through wind, like the torrent of water through a canal. So the next passage I want to highlight is the Ajnana Bhumi passage. So at some point in the Mokṣopāya, there are two passages of Yoga Bhumi. And Yoga Bhumi is also the Jnana Bhumi. And in the first one, which is in the third book, at some point, Vasishta, who's the in-text narrator of the text, mentions the Yoga Bhumi, and then Rama, who's his student in the text, says, okay, what is the Yoga Bhumi? And Vasishta says, okay, well, first, I'm going to tell you about this ajnana bhumi. There are 7 stages of ignorance, and then there are 7 stages of knowledge. And so the 7 stages of ignorance are like a descent through levels to get to this embedded deep samsara state of complete bondage and ignorance. And I suggest I have a diagram later on in this where I suggest it's like a tattva system. So Vasishtha says there are 7 levels of ignorance, and indeed there are 7 states of knowledge. However, there are many intermediate states, and the intermediate states are just the repetition of the patterns of the levels. Okay, so these are the 7 levels, and I translated them as karmadharyas. I had them as taparushas at one point, but I think they work better as karmadharyas. So there's the seed waking, the great waking, the waking dream, the dream waking, and the deep sleep. And I will suggest later with a diagram that the bija jagrat, the seed waking, is the jiva, the cosmic jiva, which is prakriti. The jagrat, the waking, is buddhi. The mahajagrat is the ahankara. The jagrat swapna is the manas. And then these levels are just repetitions of this, and I will show that in a second. Okay, so this is the same thing, but just in this level. And then here is what I just explained. So the mahajagrat is the ahankar, but it's the individual ego. That's that point where, so in the cosmic jiva, the first thing to emerge, I'll just go through the verses while we do this. Okay. So chit is a state inside of a stone. There's no vibration at all. There's no conceptualization. There's no thought. But chit has the function, the ability, the nature of producing conceptualizations, but in its rest state, there's no conceptualizations. When it does produce a conceptualization, then it's jiva. And the first conceptualization here, the first is the unblemished, inexpressible cognizing of consciousness that is partaking of the meaning of the word called jiva. It's consciousness, it's becoming. And in my understanding of this, I think this is the first subjectivity, pure. It's expressed by the word jiva, but it's also aham, aham bhava, ahomiti, aham twa. It's I-ness, right? Just pure I-ness with nothing else attached. Then we get to this clear idea, which has sprung up from the Supreme in this way, which is I am this and this is me. So first you have the initial, I don't know if I'd really call it a separation, but let's just say for now it's a separation, which is subjectivity. Then subjectivity keeps conceptualizing because every fragment of consciousness in this system continues to admit conceptualizations. But at this level, this is buddhi, the jiva knows, okay, there are those ideas, those are thoughts that are coming, but those are me. I am those thoughts. So it's I am this is me. At the next level, mahajagrat, it's ahankara, there's separation. This is where the jiva says, oh, there's thoughts over there, but those are my thoughts, but I'm here and those are those things. It belongs to me, but it's not me. So this is this level of separation. Then we have the jagrat swapna, which is manas. And this is the idea, this is the state of just in the individualized ego state, this is just the thinking. And also sometimes there's these kind of misperceptions or like here it says the state of waking in the jagratva, the individualized world, could be many kinds that have reached reduplication due to divisions within the mirage, like silver from mother of pearl, 2 moons. So misconceptions, like thinking the rope is a snake, having a daydream, those kinds of things. This is the jagrat swapna, the mind that's just constantly thinking. Then in the swapna state, this is the nighttime dream. So in this case, this is when an object is experienced at the time of sleep, although at the end of sleep, one knows this has been seen by me for a short time. It's a temporary dream at night state. So this is the swapna. Then we get to Swapna Jagrat, and this is a Maha Jagrat, the ego state in the dream. So when someone has a dream at night, inside the dream, there's a feeling of separation. Although the entire dream is consciousness, the ego thinks that's not me, that's that over there, and this is not me. So that's the Swapna Jagrat. And then we have this, it's either Sushuptika, it's called Sushuptika in the list, and then Saushupti here in the verse, which is just when the jiva is in the dream and it thinks it's separate, and then something happens to the body of the dreamer. See, it says here the abandonment of that when there's the total abandonment of the 6 levels, that the state of the insentient jiva that is full of awakening to future suffering. Okay, so when there's an abandonment of the, it's not in this, it might be in the next one. No, that the jiva thinks that dream is real. And if that's the deeply embedded samsara, where it's layers of dreams and dreams and dreams. And an example of this is the story of Jivata. The story of Jivata is there's a monk in a cell in China who decides, I want to be a common man. So he gets into meditation, and then he releases, it says here, he releases his state of manifestation. So he releases his cognizance of the body, and he awakes. He has this Maha Jagrat in the conceptualization, this dream in his mind, and he experiences being that being. But then he gets deeply embedded. So this Jivata sees the state of a Brahman who is satisfied by the performance of rituals. And then maybe he dies. I can't remember exactly, to be honest with you. I don't know why I didn't put it in the summary, but he awakes and becomes the Brahman. Then the Brahman dreams himself as a vassal. The vassal dreams himself as a king. The king then becomes wife of the gods. The wife of the gods becomes a doe. The doe a vine. The vine a bee. So like the bee is kind of flying around the rut of the elephant. And so then the bee dies in that moment and becomes the elephant. Then the elephant wakes up as a bee, and then the bee becomes a gander. And it's just this idea of like what you're seeing in your manas, mind's eye, at the moment of death, when the body is released, the jiva exists there as if it has a mahajagrat in that awaking, in that new dream. And then the samsara is this deeply embedded cycle. We see it down here of dreaming and awaking in dreams, releasing that body, awaking in the next dream, release. And the indriyas are really this whole section here, because the indriyas are sankalpas. They're just all those ideas, all those thoughts that are produced by the jiva, the cosmic jiva, the dream state, the manas. Those are all the indriyas, and they create real worlds. They create actual things that are not actual things. They're sankalpas, but we experience them as actual things. And I think, so, and this is just to say that the tanmatras and the panchabhutas are vibrations. They're just thoughts of consciousness. And that because they are, consciousness is everywhere in the world. And this is this sort of system of Sāṃkhya in the, as I see it, in the Mokṣopāya. And again, this is the diagram. And these are the critical edition texts that I worked on. And that's it. I hope I didn't go too much over.
Thank you so much. This is a fully packed talk covering the Sāṃkhya system, which is very ancient, and then of course connecting straight away to the tradition of Ramayana, coming to the Yoga Vasishta, and in between you find this yoga, this Mokṣopāya. Of course, there is always a debate in ancient India whether the Yoga Vasishta came first or Mokṣopāya, and some people consider Mokṣopāya as a part of this grand Ramayana tradition. But yes, it in a way connects with what Professor Jackson was talking about. Here was Tyagaraja taking inspiration from Rama and his stories and composing his beautiful melodious music. And in your talk, it is Vasishtha, the guru of Rama, who is trying to explain to him, as if Krishna was explaining to Arjuna, how actually to attain the. I always use moksha as a releasing oneself from unfreedom, this cycle of constant cycle of birth and death. So it was a fascinating talk, pretty packed, because the system is, for those of us who have not studied the Sāṃkhya system, you mentioned Sāṃkhya Karika, of course, these beautiful 66, 67 verses of Sāṃkhya Karika do explain the levels of, I know you said this Antaha Karana is normally, we translate them as inner indriyas or inner causes of whatever happens. This constant dialogue or relationship between Prakriti and Purusha is the one which makes everything fascinating. And as in Sāṃkhya Karika, at the very end, he says that one of the ways that Sāṃkhya Karika explains the relationship, Rangasya Darshayitva Nivartate Nati Yatha Nrityat. So for an ordinary person, you can say somebody who has come onto the stage and performed the drama, and once they have withdrawn behind the curtains, and what kind of realization after being involved in the drama, as the Bharata tradition says, Ramadivat Vartitavyam Naramanadivat. After watching the drama, if you have this inspiration and feeling and an impact on you that one should behave in a particular way, that one should behave like Rama, not necessarily like Ramana. So in this context, this is what Sāṃkhya Karika very beautifully explained, but Yoga Vasishtha as well as Mokṣopāya in particular, which is your subject today, goes deep into the philosophical moorings of India's tradition and how this tradition takes a different shape in various texts. As I said, the dating of the text has always been controversial, or rather not controversial, very difficult to fix. And I always happen to say that we have the luxury of thousands of years in ancient India. So even if you knocked off a couple of centuries, it would have little impact on the tradition, on the text, or what kind of impact it has. So thank you very much, Professor Tamara Cohen, for this presentation. And now we had one speaker in the middle, next one, which you have got perhaps the list before you. He is not available, but there is somebody else who will join us at the end of the 5 speakers. So the next speaker I'm going to call would be Professor Shiv Talwar, and I can see him here. And he has a very curious sort of title. The Dharma is not religion, and within bracket after not, he has mentioned only religion, which is, of course, I would be happy to say that Dharma is not a religion, but by putting within parentheses, you have said not only religion, which means it is beyond that, but that's a debate that we can continue. Thank you very much, Professor Talwar. Please go ahead. You need to unmute yourself, Professor Talwar. This is the vagary of online presentations. So,
thank you for reminding me.
Now you're okay, yes.
I am sharing a screen here. My name is Shiv Talwar. I'm working with Spiritual Heritage Education Network. It's an organization I founded about 25 years ago. And I'm speaking thanks to the organizers of this conference of Reclaiming Knowledge, Traditions of Bharat, and Jawaharlal Nehru University. Spiritual Heritage Education Network, the acronym is SHEN. It has got an inclusive vision. We do not teach anything that is not universally applicable. And that's what this little logo here shows. This is the globe. whatever we teach has to be globally applicable. And my talk, the title is Neurobiology of Transformation. Indian science are developing an insight of one global family. It is, you can say, an article of reclaiming Bharatiya pluralism. That was the title of the last talk of Dr. Long. This is perhaps the one slide that you can say is the key slide. It is the summary of whatever I'm speaking on. Instincts inherited from the beginning of time. Time and space began with the Big Bang. That's what we are told by the scientists. And that is what we are told by the Vedic knowledge too, that the non-being, when it wanted to be, it heated itself. The temperature of the Big Bang was millions and billions of degrees Celsius. It heated itself beyond light. And that is how the universe began, according to the Vedas. And that is how the universe began by the science. And you can say the Big Bang, in scientific terms, started from a point of singularity. And that point had all the energy crunched up, and it exploded all of a sudden, and that's how the universe started. From the point, it started gaining size, started to grow. And that is what the whole creation happens. If you look at an individual human being, starts with one cell, hardly ever visible, and that cell grows biologically with the a biological process called mitosis, and one cell becomes two, two becomes four, and like that, it starts to grow. And by the time we are grown up, we are 37.2 trillion cells in a body. And when the Big Bang began, all of a sudden, stardust appeared, which was very, very hot, billions of degrees centigrade. And one particle of stardust could not differentiate itself from the next. There was an experience of non-differentiation by all particles of stardust. So non-differentiation is the first experience. Now you can say, how can a particle of stardust experience everything? Everything, according to Sāṃkhya, is Purusha and Prakriti, is consciousness and energy. And the energy becomes a stardust, and the consciousness of it is the memory, where it's memory of its experience. That is consciousness. You can say even a particle of stardust has got a mind of its own, and that mind is conscious. And in that mind, the memory of that mind consists of non-differentiation. From that stardust, when it cools, becomes matter. And matter atoms, they differentiate from each other. They have a self-concept. When two atoms come together, they know they're next to each other. They can sense whether there's compatibility between them or not. And they can interact and become a molecule. So, but there is no destruction of any nature. And so again, the experience is like that of non-differentiation, or you can say non-duality. Although there is some duality, but it's not enough for them to become two. There is an experience of non-duality between them. And the behavior is run by an integrated science, integrated force, which later becomes four forces. And the four forces are electromagnetism, gravitation, weak nuclear force, and strong nuclear force. And then comes life on the scene. Matter becomes life. And there is the creation of DNA that makes matter into a living being. And first life started to exist about 11 billion years after the Big Bang. Our planet started to form about 10 billion years after the Big Bang. And our planet Earth, when it cooled for about a billion and a quarter years, then life appeared. And that life consists of cells, which are made from atoms of different forms of matter. And in the nucleus of the cell, there is called a DNA, a gene, genetic matter. And that genetic matter has got written in its memory. It's got a humongous amount of memory. It's written in its memory as to what the person of which the gene is a gene will become like. It's got the map of the mind and body of every living being. The experience of the genes is written in the memory of the gene. Again, consciousness working in mysterious ways defines a living being from the genes, genetic matter that happens to be in the cells. And that started to happen about 11 and a quarter billion years after the Big Bang. And then as a single cell bacteria, from the single cell bacteria, the multicellular life forms. And finally, about 3.8 billion years later, a human being appears on the scene. So there's the evolution of life from a single cell bacteria to a 37.2 trillion cell human being. And the instinct of life, what differentiates life from matter? Life is born and then it dies. So survival is its biggest experience, and you can say it's the biggest focus. And the instinct of survival in living beings is another instinct. So you have instinct of non-differentiation or non-duality, which is built into us. we are hardwired for love. That is what non-duality is. That is what non-differentiation is. And survival means self-preservation, to save or keep breath and body together, and to sustain it with food, and to procreate, to continue the species, to continue human species. These are instincts, things that we do that we never learn from anything. It comes from with us, built into us. So we are hardwired for survival, and we are hardwired for love. And if sometimes survival is so selfish that love disappears. And that essentially is what happens. The forces 1 and 2, you can say this and this, the material forces and the force of non-differentiation, the stardust, that is in every cell of our body. And the 3 force, the survival force, it is in our genetic memory of every cell. And the survival force eclipses the force of non-duality and non-differentiation. So in the name of self-survival, we sometimes sacrifice love. And that happens a lot because love is a conscious thing. And most of the time, life was either unconscious or subconscious. And consciousness is the development of last 200 million years as compared to 3.8 billion year history of life on Earth. So we have a choice between love-based life, it is built into us, and the other one is survival or fear-based life. Survival is essentially fear-based because survival means birth and death. So we could be living a fear-based life of survival, or we could be living a love-based life of non-differentiation. We are hardwired for both. Survival eclipses love, and that is what our human condition is. And we can create a balance. Transformation is a balance between fear and love-based life, survival-based life, and non-differentiation-based life. When we create a balance, then we become a transformed human being. And every human can transform himself or herself. Lesser life, you could say, for the first 3.6 billion years of evolution, they were not conscious. And love-based life is the prerogative of the conscious human beings only. So we humans can transform ourselves, whereas non-mammals cannot. So that essentially is the summary of what I'm talking about. And because love-based life of non-differentiation or non-duality and fear-based life of survival, we are hardwired for both. our neurobiology is designed for it. Okay, and survival instinct lodges in our genetic memory and non-differentiation in every atom. We talked about that. Non-biology, neurobiology, science of the genes, body, and the brain. Genetic driven, gene-driven possession by survival instincts is at the root of our human condition, and its remediation is a consequence of our epigenetic modification of our gene expression. And this is a very simple way of saying what we are talking about. Lifestyle that includes simple physical practices, such as sitting still and breathing deep, neurobiologically modify our gene expression and transforms ourselves. Going into details,
we are running out of time, so can you wind up, please? Thank you so much.
Okay, are we towards the end of time?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, you can take a minute or so, yes.
Okay, I'll take a minute to enumerate what happens with the transformation we are talking about. We have optimal physical health, very selfish way to transform is to have an optimal physical health, very good mental health and wellness, lasting happiness, high focus of attention, high learning ability, high executive function, purposeful and life with the prosperity, harmonious behavior, non-violence and world peace, interfaith and interracial harmony, law and order, individuals, disciplined individuals and communities, respect for others and the environment. And I will be pleased to share my set of slides with anybody who requests.
Thank you so much for, thank you. It's a very, very good presentation. In a way, it connects with the earlier presentation, of course, of a very different kind. The enumeration, one of the dukkhatrayabhigata tadabhagate hetau. So what are the reasons to remove the miseries of life which emerge out of the sense or experience of death and birth? So Sāṃkhya also suggests that if we understand the inner engineering of the body and the universe through enumerating ourselves, our elements, we should be able to rid ourselves of the suffering. And in your context, of course, you have gone into physics, and Sāṃkhya in a way becomes a metaphysics. So physics about physics. Thank you so much for this presentation. And as I'm sorry to interrupt you because we are running short of time. I know those of you who have joined from North America is well past 10 o'clock. And I don't want to take too much of your time either by speaking, which I can on the papers, but the next speaker is Professor Harsha Dehejia, and he is going to talk about art Svaraj and art history and how through aesthetics and through art one can imagine or reclaim Svaraj. Professor Dehejia. You're muted, so either you're not speaking. Yeah, you're muted, Dehejia, so unmute yourself and then you can open your...
Yes, good morning, friends. I'm speaking from Mumbai.
Oh, I thought you were in Ontario. Fine, good, good, good. So
I live in Ontario, but yeah, I hope. So can you see my?
yeah, put it on presentation mode, and that's it. In the bottom right corner, there is a presentation mode in your screen, and then we can see the full screen.
Yes, I'm trying to locate that.
No, you go to the bottom of your screen. No, sorry, the same thing. You just open that, which you had earlier, and just open this, please. And in the bottom, you can see near the volume, and just next to the volume is the screen of computer or television. You click on that. Above it. Here next to it. No, that is the screen. Yes, this one.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. So, good morning, friends. My work is work in progress, so by no means complete. And I have two provisional titles for my work. I'm calling it The Third Eye of Indian Art, Aesthetics as Vedanta. The subtitle is Art Svaraj, whereby I'm meaning that following the footsteps of Gandhiji, but not in a political sense, I want to say that the time has come for some of our traditional art, not all art, to return it to aesthetics which really belongs to Vedanta or Ananda or self-realization and things like that. So when we talk of the eyes, as you know, in Indian art, traditional art, and beauty, we talk of many, many eyes. The eyes of our gods, the eyes of powerful eyes of Tirupati, the almond-shaped eyes of Srinathji, the eyes of a poet like Vidyapati, the eyes of a Naika as she's getting ready to meet her beloved, of a very shy Naika like the Bunny Thani of Kishangarh. A lot has been written about the eyes of Bunny Thani, and then the very coy eyes of a very romantic young woman waiting for her beloved. But I'm really talking about the third eye of Indian art. And why am I talking about it now? The reason I'm talking about it now is because for the last 100 years or so, the discourse on Indian art has been taken over, and I'd like to use the word hijacked, by art historians who have a very Western idea about Indian art. Also, while we never had museums in ancient or medieval India, we had chitrashalas in palaces and so on, and temples were veritable museums. We now have this very westernized museum. This is my museum where I work in Mumbai, called the Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum, a very, very beautiful museum. But when you put an art object in a museum, it gets truncated from its origins. It gets fragmented, and the meaning has to be recreated or totally lost. And then you have art historians starting from Kumaraswamy, going all the way to Goswami, who concentrate entirely on the objectivity of the art object. Who is the patron? When was it done? What kingdom was it done? What were the paints? What were the political forces? What were the social forces? All very well. It is of some interest to me, but really, in my aesthetic experience, all these things do not really make too much of a difference to me. And then to make matters worse, art has become a commodity. You have art auctions. Just the other day in Mumbai, about 2 months back, I attended an auction where a Kangra painting, a very beautiful Kangra painting, which should have gone for 20 to 30 lakhs, was sold for 16 crores. Do you ever think that that exhibition will leave the bank vault and come into the vision of art lovers or museums or painters and so on? No, it's going to become an investment object and so on. So these are all very, very troublesome activities as far as I'm concerned. And then if that is not enough, a lot of art historians start writing books like The History of India Through 100 Objects. Why don't they write books of History of India Through 100 Art Experiences, not art objects? Art objects to me are extremely sterile. They're too objective. So my purpose, my intention is that we move the adjective to the noun. Sundar is an adjective which describes the object. Saundarya is a contemplative noun, which is aesthetic experience. That is not taking place. We are stopping at Sundar. Yes, it's useful to know all about the object, but the end point. And the third eye that I'm talking about is not an eye, but it's a space where the sakar or the form becomes nirakar or formless, where shabda acquires its artha, where bhava becomes rasa, lyrics dissolve into melody, the object surrenders its objectivity, the subject shines in its own light, swayam prakasha, where Shakti and Shiva become the Ardhanari. Gnana dissolves into Bhakti to give us an experience of Purnatva, Ananda, Atmarati, Atmanishta. These are the markers of an aesthetic experience. This is where our art experience should end, not in kings and palaces and ateliers and auction houses and so on. So one way of trying to learn about aesthetic experience are from the simplest people of our earth, who are the Adivasis, whom I call the philosophers of the earth, who produce paintings like this. This is a Varli painting. And there are so many nuances and symbolisms in this very, very simple rice-based painting of Varlis who live near Mumbai in Maharashtra. And then, of course, there are the Adivasis. This is the Gond painting. And they do this very beautiful tree of life. But look at how they integrate life of different forms. The other thing that we should pay attention to when we look at, study, and contemplate on Indian art are what are called archetypes. Because many of our forms in traditional art are archetypal forms. And many of these archetypal forms emerge from that very central myth called the Samudra Manthan. You all know that, where the gods and the demons churned the ocean, and a number of treasures came out. Some say 9, some say 14, like the cow, the horse, the tree, the Dhanvantari, the pot, and so on, the Ramba, the Surasundari. All of these are archetypal forms, which then become part of our artistic vocabulary. So one has to take that form to its archetypal roots to totally understand it. For example, the Kalasha, which is such a foundational object in Indian art, you must be able, and it comes up in so many different ways, one must be able to take it to its archetypal roots in the Samudra Manthan, the Kalasha that holds the nectar. And then there are these Kalasha-shaped objects, where the Kalasha imprints its archetypal form on so many different objects that we normally use. The woman and the tree is another very archetypal image. And again, it comes up in so many different ways in our arts, in our poetry. And unless we understand it, the Kalpa Vriksha, the tree of life, again comes up in so many different ways in our arts. So you cannot stop at just discussing that this is a Gond Kalpa Vriksha or this is a Kalamkari Kalpa Vriksha. Yes, they are, but they're more than that. So in the current climate of art, we are not able to take that second very, very important step. It's our colonized mind, which is totally, and the museum culture, that we are totally satisfied in calling it a Gond Kalpa Vriksha or a Kalamkari Kalpa Vriksha. We are also losing metaphors. We talk about Naikas. We talk about how sensuous they are, how they are longing for their beloved. But do we realize what is the meaning of the Abhisarika Naika, which you see on the right side, who leaves her home in the middle of the night for her beloved? And then there is the sensuality of the eternal feminine, which is present in our arts in so many different ways, whether it is the various river goddesses, whether it is objects with a garbha in it, which is again that sensually feminine object with the womb. You know, the minute you move from the object to the womb, again, so many different things open up for us. And then there is the woman in the tree who holds the branch of a tree, which takes us to the Salabhanjika, the Yakshi. And then the eternal feminine who dances, who waits for a beloved, who's seen as Surasundaris in so many of our monuments. And then how many of us think about the third dimension or space in our art? Look at this very beautiful, I think it's a Kangada painting from the Bhagavad Puran, that the artist is a Vedantin without reading a word of Vedanta, because he displays a two-dimensional painting with the river at the bottom, the sky, which you probably don't see. So he's converted this pictorial space into a cosmic space. This is not the space that a Mughal artist would use. See how we use time in our paintings. Look at the painting on the left, the Lambargram Gita Govinda, where time is continuous. Look at the painting on the right. It's a Mughal painting where time is frozen in a very rational, Western, non-Indian way. So, and then lastly, we are always interested in that end point of aesthetic experience, which we call Vishranti, not Vishranti like this, but the Vishranti of the Buddha, the Vishranti of Vishnu. These are the Vishranti of Shiva and Parvati. These are extremely powerful concepts, the concept of rest. And that rest can only happen when the third eye opens, when we are undergoing an aesthetic experience. The same concepts of Vedanta can be taken into ordinary designs, everyday designs, whether it is design on a fabric, whether it is design on a stone. And finally, let me say that aesthetic experience, when the third eye opens, is like the Ardhanari, where we take the objective side of the object and the subjective experience of the object and bring them together in one Purana, holistic experience. That is aesthetic experience in its best and sense. And therefore, the Purusha, the Shiva part of the aesthetic experience is contemplative, it is stillness, it is spiritual, it is nirakar, whereas the objective is more with form, with sakar and so on. These have to be brought together. And when all this happens, when we are in a true aesthetic experience, we are led to smaranam. What do we remember? We remember our true selves, which we have forgotten, which is also another very Vedantic idea, that during a contemplative experience, whether it is of jnana, whether it is of bhakti, and in my case, whether it is of rasa or aesthetic experience, it leads to smaranam, a remembrance of our true and original self. So the two birds of Vedanta that perch on the same tree, again, are reminders that aesthetic experience is a combination of the art object on the one hand and the art experience on the other. And it is only when we close our two eyes that the third eye will open. And this will lead to a synoptic, synesthetic vision. This is Indian drishti at its enlightened best. This is what we should aim for. This is what we have forgotten because our mind has been too colonized by Western trained art historians. And therefore, we need to create a mandala of aesthetic experience where the object and the subject come together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What a florid brilliance in your presentation through paintings. This is a bravura performance, I must say, in terms of connecting the inner self. And I can see one hand has already gone up, but I just wanted to appreciate your brilliant way of connecting the philosophical, the aesthetic, the rasa part of it. And of course, you ended with a very powerful verse from the Upanishad, Suparna, Sayuja, Sakhaya, Samanam, Briksham, Parishat Svajate, Tayo Rekaha Pipalam, Swadavati, Anashtan, Nanyo Vichakashiti. The two birds, but they have to be, Professor Dehejia, Sakhaya, they have to be friends, very close, intimate friends.
Well, indeed, indeed.
And so one of them, and of course, and they have to be Suparna, beautiful birds.
Absolutely.
Just any bird. And that this imagination, this, as I said, this florid imagination of the Upanishadic rishis is something that brings out what you discussed about various art forms that are coming out. And yes, without the aesthetic rapture or aesthetic appreciation of what is going on in the mind of the artist, and of course the perceiver, the one which eats the fruit of the world and or of the tree rather, and the other simply watches on, and vicarious perhaps is a wrong term, but relishing too, seeing the great friend enjoying the fruit of that tree. So yes, one needs to have a very heightened sense of aesthetic appreciation to realize what is going on, how our writers, our sages and rishis have tried to paint the picture. I always say in my lectures and classes that for the Mahabharata, for the Ramayana, you do not need a script writer. Perhaps sometimes you don't even need a very accomplished director to perform it. And all of you, and I'm so glad that it is connected. I think Tamara had a hand on. You wanted to ask something, and go ahead, because then we'll ask for the last talk of this session, and then go ahead if you had something to ask.
No, I was just clapping. It was a clapping
Oh,
reaction.
it's a clapping. Sorry, I just said, okay, brilliant. Thank you. So I'll move on to the last talk. I think the very last one is a recorded talk from Italy. But let us go ahead with those who are already present here. And this is Nisha Bhaskar. It's a very nice screen, Professor Dehejia, of your computer. Very lovely, colorful,
Thank you.
Brilliant, not loud at all. So where is Nisha Bhaskar? Preeti? Is she also not there? Hello, in that case, we should play the tape, already a recorded podcast type of thing by...
She is there, sir.
She is there, so she should appear on the screen. And can you stop sharing your screen, Professor Dehejia, so that, yes, thank you. Nisha Bhaskar, where are you? Preeti, where is Nisha Bhaskar? Yes, okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Go ahead, adjust your screen because yeah.
So what the last speaker discussed vis-a-vis the art, my paper discusses that in the context of literature. This paper also questions the...
And do you differentiate between literature and art?
Literature and art, I can differentiate between literature and art.
Yes, we can always differentiate it, but as Dehejia Sahab said that, both are more or less like that Upanishadic birds. Anyway, go ahead.
This is what the paper tries to differentiate. I take the help of Mimamsa, and with Mimamsa, I say that these are the tools of interpretation that we should use while discussing our scriptures. When we talk about a scripture from one particular legal tradition, we should also use the tools that belong to that particular legal tradition. And this paper discusses that with the context of right and duty. When we join the law school, and it's evident that we would be taught what is right, what is duty. But that concept emerges from the very Western legal tradition. When we are talking about the Hindu legal tradition, that I have been using the word, and I'm not the first person who has been using that terminology. We have a catena of writers who have written on that. So we should be sticking in the context. This paper questions the very context, very episteme of what we have been taught and how we are not using the tools of interpretation and not studying the things with this. The paper proposes that in the Hindu legal tradition, we have to talk about dharma rather than talking about the right and duty. The problem arises when we say that dharma is like this, and Professor Kane, Professor Kane has talked about this, that the fallacy arises when we start juxtaposing something, that dharma is the duty, dharma is the concept which arises. Dharma is not the duty, dharma is not something that the king formulates, rather it is something which has been guiding the king. And I don't think this kind of system was there in any legal tradition where there was a principle that was guiding the very state structure. Rather, it has been what we study, the social contract theory. This was not there within the Hindu legal tradition. But how do we understand it? The problem arises when we try to understand it from the tools, from the scripture. When we try to understand this from the scriptures, from the tools of Western legal tradition. And this is what this paper is against. Am I audible? Is there some issue?
No, you're perfectly audible. Go ahead.
Sorry. So, see, and let's take this example from Uttarakhand. We say, this talks about Reimagining, and in that it says that Dehi Devik Bodhik Tapa Ram Raj Nai Kahiu Vyapa Sapnar Karihi Paraspar Preeti Chalihi Sarva Dharma Nirati Shruti Niti. When we understand this from the literal interpretation, we will understand that what is Dharma, what we understand by Ramarajya, Dharma, where every religion, it is rather what assignment.
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
I think there has some problem with your internet connection has crept in, so it is coming intermittently.
Is it audible now?
No, I mean, if you want to, you can switch off your video. It might get better. The bandwidth might, capture the audio better.
I think it is audible now.
No,
I have switched off.
I mean, you think, but I mean, it is coming in a sort of broken sounds. Yes. Try it.
I am so sorry.
I think, yeah. Now you're totally. I think your connection is not good. Can we wait? You can log out and log in. Nisha, can I request you to log out?
Yes, if that's okay, I will log out and log in.
Yes, in a few seconds. So thank you. And I want to thank all the participants for their patience. No, it is no good. Apologies for this interruption as it happens. And apology also that I was munching away my breakfast in between. So sorry. Yes, Preeti, am I properly audible to all, or is it some problem in the connection, or only the speaker?
You are audible, sir.
That's fine. Thank you. So, if Nisha Bhaskar cannot log in, we would request Preeti to go ahead and play the tape in between of Benedetta Bertani from Italy. Is that okay? Preeti,
Sir,
ask the
after that
ask the Zoom team to
recording
play
session,
that tape,
yes,
and
sir.
then in
After the
between
session, we'll have a group photo, sir.
No, that is fine, but I'm saying in the meantime, why don't you play the tape and let Nisha
Okay, sir.
Bhaskar
Okay, sir.
sort out the bandwidth and technical issues at her end. I don't know where she's speaking from, Delhi or Uttarakhand somewhere. So we have one, because one person, Professor Long had opted out for some reason. And so there is one tape from Benedetta Bertani or Bertani from Italy. Can you play that tape, please? That podcast?
Yes, sir. It's in progress.
Yes. Because it is getting too late in North America. I want to complete it in time because we have barely 15 minutes left. So probably we won't be able to take Nisha Bhaskar again if you play this tape, because I would like to close it. It would be too late for our American colleagues to stay on much later. Our day is beginning here, but theirs had ended long ago. Are you able to play, or we simply have a little discussion and close it?
So we're working on it. Just a minute, sir.
You should have lined it up earlier. Just.
Excuse me, if it's all right, can I present it?
Oh, Nisha, so you are clear anyway. So you work it out, line it up quickly, because Nisha, you have only 5 to 7 minutes to complete because we are too much out of time. Okay.
Okay.
Come
Thank
to
you.
the main point. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was discussing that with the tools of Mimamsa, we need to understand what we have to interpret while we talk about Dharma. And I gave this example from Uttarakhand. From this Uttarakhanda, we have this shloka that is about Ram Rajya.
Uttarakhand. I thought you were talking about Uttarakhand. So sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
Sorry, because of my pronunciation, it's the problem. But I'm talking about Uttarakhanda, and Uttarakhand, we have this shloka that is about Ram Raj. It says, Dehik Devik Bautik Tapa, Ram Raj Kahihu Vyapa, Sabnar Karhi Paraspar Priti, Chalahi Sarvdham Nirat Shruti Niti. When we understand this, what do we understand by this Sarvadharm? We will not understand this Sarvadharm in the context of what we say that Dharma is this religious following. It is not the religious following. Rather, it would be understood at what I have to perform. And this is what I have been talking about, that when we understand this in the context of Vedic scriptures and what we understand by Dharma, we need to understand that this is not something that is flowing by virtue of the state. Rather, it is the prescribed form on which the state is enshrined, on which the state is performing. So this is what I have been talking about. And I say in this paper, I say that rather than understanding the right and duty as the binary, for understanding this concept of how we understand the concept of Dharma, we should use the tools of interpretation that is available within the Hindu legal tradition, and that.
Sorry, your connection is slipped out once again. I think you had better stop here, because we have got the gist of what you wanted to say, that the interpretation, as you mentioned in the beginning, from the hermeneutic Mimamsa tradition, and if you take the essence out of the text, what the author meant to say, I'm not going to say that this is a part of deconstruction. So what is now happening here, Preeti? Okay, so anyway, we have lined up the other one. We don't want to waste any time. Deep medicine and Ayurveda is the talk of Benedetta Bertani's presentation. Play it, please. The audio. There is no audio. Zoom team. Zoom team, please fix the audio. Did you play it before patching it up here? I'm sorry, nothing is heard, and nor is the screen moving at all. Yes. Go ahead. Now it's okay.
In this short presentation, I would like to talk about my experience as an Ayurvedic therapist, and I'm very lucky to be able to practice empirical medical anthropology thanks to your extraordinary and ancient system of traditional medicine. Ayurveda is a medical science that is becoming very popular because it responds to the needs of many people for whom the biomedical approach is not enough to maintain health and well-being. Many people turn to Ayurveda as a complementary and integrated medical system for chronic health problems like stress, insomnia, hormonal imbalance, burnout, and in general to seek new ways to improve their health and well-being. The growing trend towards holistic medicine systems is in line with the emerging systemic and ecological vision, which consider humans as a manifestation of the macro. Finally, the Cartesian division gives way to an unfiled dimension between body and mind. And now, let's go into detail about the matter. The growing interest in Ayurveda is part of a wider epistemological concept. The Cartesian dualism concept, which was necessary for the development of natural sciences and medical physics, has been progressively replaced by a systemic and organic vision of life. This way of thinking has been fundamental for the development of quantum physics, which has many points in common with the expert philosophy. In particular, Ayurveda is based on the idea that the entire cosmos is a unit that interacts at all levels of the system. So the idea of deep ecology, holistic medicine, and spirituality find fertile ground in which to develop. We live in a globalized and interconnected world in which biological, ecological, social, and environmental phenomena are interdependent. A new era has begun in which the holistic concept will guide the development of all science. This new holistic and ecological concept includes the spiritual experience, understood as a state of consciousness in which humans feel connected to the cosmos and humanity. So the body of knowledge that comes from the Indian tradition integrates and creates a space for rethinking the concept of health and well-being. Yes, sir. As Margaret Mead, an important 20th century anthropologist, said, culture was born when humans began to take care of each other, because this is when the feeling of community, sharing, and empathy developed. Taking care of each other is a fundamental anthropological concept that introduced the idea of a relationship.
Audio is not clear.
What do we mean by health? Health is not the absence of illness, but a state of psychical well-being and harmony with the environment in which we live. This definition, written by the World Health Organization, is the same as the Ayurvedic definition. So we need to rethink the idea of health and care. While medical science has made important technological developments, on the other hand, the idea of the medical study of humans in their totality has been progressively lost. Care is a loving relationship with others, with the aim of guaranteeing their subsistence, and space for their growth. What important contribution can Ayurveda make to finding a way to apply this holistic Western context? I approached Ayurveda after completing my studies in anthropology and neuroanthropology. I was fascinated by the theme of embodiment, the placebo effect, the therapeutic process, and the psychoneuroimmunology. I turned to Ayurveda to solve health problems at a delicate and fragile period of my life. After having 2 children, I needed a tool to take care of myself and get to know myself better. It was like wearing a new pair of glasses, a new way of seeing and getting to know myself, interpreting a relationship, observing people and the cycle of nature. A very powerful impact compared to the way I used to learn. I started to observe the world in a relational and systemic way to my health as a response to environmental and social adaptation mechanisms. It's a holistic system of healing in the truest sense. Body, mind, and consciousness are in constant interaction and relationship with other people and the environment. As a science of self-healing, it includes diet, nutrition, lifestyle, rest, treatment, and medical herbs, along with the cleansing program for healing body and mind. Attending the school to become an Ayurvedic therapist was a natural and necessary step, an opportunity to apply medical anthropology in practice. The greatest gift that Ayurveda can give to a Western trained person is direct empirical experience. Through bodily experience, we can activate a different perceptive mode, loosen rational mental activity, and activate the intuitive mode. The key to feeling part of something greater than our ego, and in this quantum place, find infinite possibility to express our identity, potential. The growth in the number of people teaching Ayurveda is also driven by trend toward its condition.
It doesn't work like this.
Have become widespread over the last 20 years. Just thinking of the status of yoga, which has often become a discipline linked to fitness rather than spirituality. Yoga is the mind of Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is the body. Here in the slide are some figures that help us understand the economical revenue linked to the market of Ayurvedic products.
Our mic is on mute now.
Economic volume generated by Ayurveda is certainly not the result of a trend conveyed by marketing, but first and foremost a human necessity. Most people in the Western world live in big cities with a frenetic pace of life that generates a high rate of chronic stress that comes from a competitive society that is disconnected from human relationships. We live in a world that is hyper-connected through technology, but we are much lonelier than in the past. The precarious economic situation, the fragility of family and social relationships, and in general the sense of uncertainty has caused a dramatic increase in illnesses related to chronic stress, depression, and inflammatory autoimmune disease. Biomedicine is unable to treat these system-level illnesses with their strong psychological connotation. The widespread use of psychotropic drugs with their significant side effects and dubious healing results is encouraging a part of the population to turn to natural medicine. People who come to my studio for Ayurvedic treatments are therefore looking for a natural way to regain their well-being. They are looking for a space and time of complete rest and care, a time to listen to their breathing, release tension, and sincerely listen to their emotions as they express themselves through the body. This bodywork session, carried out using medicated Indian herbal oils, are therapies to restore balance, calm the mind, and allow the perception of the body and emotion. When the rational thinking mind is silent, an intuitive mode is active. During the treatment, the pleasant sensation of connection with the whole body gives us the awareness of being part of a universe, regulated by natural rhythm. This realignment with nature that creates us has a great therapeutic effect through the activation of hormones and neurotransmitters that have always been present in our body. We need to rethink the concept of medicine and treatment is emerging. Western medicine has so far considered the human body as a machine that can be studied by dividing its components. Illness is seen as an external.
Thank you so much for your patience. We will stop this hearing from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to apologize to all our guests and audience that there was just some technical issue in a couple of them, but I think we got the gist of even those Nisha Bhaskar and this Bertani's presentation. I think it has been a very enriching experience today for me to listen to all of them, beginning from Professor Jackson, who dived into Tyagaraja's music and how it transforms the melody of life and perhaps towards the release from suffering, whatever whatever kind it may be, particularly. And then Tamara Cohen went into a very scientific mode of understanding the inner engineering, if you forgive my saying that, what happens, and if you understand that all the at least three kinds of dukkhas, as Sāṃkhya would say, and then moving on to a very powerful text, Mokṣopāya, which is, in a way, I would say, even terse text to interpret and to understand. And then we have art and aesthetics, and here Ayurveda. So overall, it was a very, very enriching session. I do not know what your plan is, because the time is now up. I'm concerned about our North American guests. They need to take some rest. Our day, as I said, is beginning. It's office time now. What is the plan now, Preeti? We
Sir,
don't have any time for question and answer. And let us do away with that. You had said
as you conclude this thought-provoking session, I extend my sincere gratitude to each one of you for your valuable insights,
of course,
engaging discussion, and enthusiastic participation. Your contribution have truly enriched our exploration of Bharat's knowledge tradition, helping us reimagine their relevance in a global context. Sir, special thanks to you for your insightful guidance and for steering this session with such a depth and clarity. Your expertise and thoughtful moderation have been instrumental in shaping a meaningful dialogue. Thank you
you.
all for making this session a success. Please on your camera for just a group photo.
They want to take a good photograph, so if you don't mind switching on your
Yes,
camera
sir.
from wherever you are, and I'm very delighted that even around say 11 o'clock in North America, they're still pretty bright and up in the night there. And I think in the Far East from India, people are in the middle of the day and we are beginning. So those of you, can you switch on the camera, please? Yes, I can see. Oh, my camera is not on. Sorry, I'm preaching and there it is. Sorry. Yes. Yes. So thank you. One by one, people are switching their cameras. So that you want to take a screenshot. How will you take the picture? Who will take a screenshot? Preeti?
The Zoom meeting is taking care of it.
Okay, so please do that. And in the meantime, while they are doing it, I would like to say from my side, thank you for the opportunity and thank you very much for all the brilliant presentations and pretty comprehensive presentation, I must say. We didn't have any short of time except the technical glitches in the last two presentations. But even there, we got the gist of what they wanted to say. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you all. Thank you.